What's the difference between a book produced by a trade publisher such as this and a self-published book? I'll tell you that there is no difference between a book produced by a trade publisher such as this and a self-published book such as mine. Both of these books feature professional covers by artists. They feature the same interiors, like your front matter, your text, and then your back matter, and they all feature the same elements. They're both paperbacks. They're both printed by the same printers in the same factories here in America. They're the exact same product, but because one is produced by a publishing house and one is produced by an individual, people believe that there is some sort of difference. And that difference is only in your mind. There is no difference between a book produced by a trade publisher or a book produced by a self publisher. Based on the content, they're pretty much the same. And the only reason why one has more value is because of an opinion. And the only opinion that people think is so important is that they think that this editor's opinion at this trade house makes this book better. And this is not the case. When you look at the end of the day, it's all opinions. Somebody at the trade publishing house thought this story, Live at 5, had a value. Now, I thought Isis Night of the Vampires had a value. Same idea, same beliefs that got both of these books published, except this person, editor who picked this book up, thought this book had value, and I thought this book had value. So both books have an equal value. But in the eyes of money readers, they think that the book by the trade house has more value because somebody had a good opinion of it. And they think the self published book has no value because the writer believed in it. Which is more important to people? The idea that some person outside thought this book had value, or the idea that the writer believed in themselves enough that they were willing to invest their own money? And this is just a case of perception. That's usually what it is when it comes down to publishing. Because at the end of the day, what leads to a book getting published is just that, opinions. And what's usually in most books, such as your fiction novels like Live at 5 and Isis Night of the Vampires, are somebody's opinion. So, what makes one book more valuable than the other? What makes one book more better than the other? I say both books are pretty much equal. And, in today's changing publishing world, people are starting to realize that there is no real difference between a trade house published book and a self published book. Both books feature the same type of content. In many cases, they feature the same types of stories. And the only difference between them is who was the publisher. And a lot of people, they're starting to understand that there is no difference between a book produced by a trade publisher and a book created by a self publisher. The only difference is that one person has one opinion of it, and the other one is that the author had an opinion of it. And those opinions, are like everything else out here. Everybody has an opinion, and I tend to value self-published books a little higher because the author is believing in themselves. They have enough confidence, to go out here and take their own money and put it at risk and go out here and try to sell this book to other readers, try to share it with other readers, and try to get them to read their stories and give them a chance. And they're taking a chance on themselves. Now, the guy with the trade publishing house, what they're doing is, yes, they got somebody to believe in their work, they got somebody to like their work, and they got somebody to take a risk on their work. Somebody decided, I like this book so much. Some editor said, I like this book so much, I'm going to take some of this company's money and I'm going to invest it in it. And in most cases, 90% of all books, what a lot of people don't know is 90% of all books fail in the publishing market. And it's really, at the end of the day, based on somebody's opinion, whether that book is bought or not. So, again, it all boils down to opinion. And a lot of people's perception are that, trade house published books like this Live at 5 have are a lot cleaner and they don't have as many errors or typos than a book like your Isis Night of the Vampires. But in truth, both books may contain typos, both books may contain grammatical errors. I have read books from trade publishing houses with typos and grammatical errors and sentence structure issues. So that argument does not fly when it comes to the difference between a trade book and a self-published book. Or they'll say that a book from a trade publisher has more accurate facts. And I have read nonfiction books from trade publishers which feature inaccurate facts. I remember reading a book when I was doing my CompTIA A Plus exam back in 2009 that said that Macintosh was not a Unix operating system, and that was a totally inaccurate fact. But we have people who will swear up and down that a book produced by a trade publisher is more accurate, has less typos, has better factual accuracy, and has all these little things that will make that book better. And I have to say, that's not the case at all, because I have seen, again, books from trade publishers that feature typos, feature factual inaccuracies, and feature really bad sentence structure. In most cases, what people don't understand about the publishing industry is that the publishing industry has thoroughly pared down over the last 30 or 40 years, and that a lot of people that they used to hire, like your line editors, your proofreaders, and other people, they just can't afford to keep on the payroll. And in many cases, your average editor will go from one trade house to another trade house, and the turnover is very high in publishing. And people don't stay in this industry that long. And a lot of people, they don't understand these things, and they think that the book by the trade house has a higher value and a higher quality, when in actuality, both books are on the same level. Because I've seen so many people have this perception of trade published books as having this higher quality because they were produced by a trade house and a so-called staff of a whole bunch of people, when in actuality these days that staff has been pared down to basically a skeleton crew. So the line editors are no longer gone, the proofreaders are gone. All these people no longer work at your trade house. Usually a trade house, books are picked up by an editor, then they are sent to a committee, and the committee will decide whether or not they're going to publish this book. And again, it all boils back down to opinions. This is why a lot of authors now are deciding to take their work into their own hands and saying, look, at the end of the day, for me sending out all these queries to literary agents, sending all these queries to editors, at the end of the day, it's all just someone's opinion of my work, whether they like it or not. So if it's all based on opinion, I may as well just take my own work and go out and publish it myself and go get the opinions of a bunch of other people. That's all it is at the end of the day. And if people like your work, they like your work. And if not, then that's okay. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all opinions, whether a book is good or not. It is not based on some intellectual's idea of whether a book is good or not. What makes one book more liked than another book, again, it's based on opinion. It's based on people having a relationship with the characters in the story, or how they see the story in their own mind. It's not based on, some set of standards established, again, by people, which is, again, based on opinion. There is no real ideal set of standards based on what makes a book great. So there is no real difference between a trade published book and a self-published book. And I've seen, so many people come in, they have this really pretentious idea that, oh, he got his book published by a trade house, so his book is better than the book published by a self-published author. And there is no difference except in your own mind and your own perception of it. And because some people see a Random House label on the back of the book, they think that this book meets a certain standard for quality. When I have seen books from trade houses that were some of the worst I have ever read, such as Your Napoli Ever After. So that really does not, it should not be your barometer for quality. I've read books that were self-published, which gave me more information than your books created by your trade house. So it's not, um, that should not be your barometer for quality. Your barometer for quality should be the writer's prose style, the writer's storytelling ability, the writer's narrative. Those should be your barometers for quality. If the writer can produce on that level, you know, that should be your standard. Where the book comes from is not, again, a barometer of quality, because trade houses, um, many cases, produce books that are just as bad or just as good as a book created by a self-published author. So I'm urging people not to discount any book produced by a self-published author. Books produced by self-published authors based on their resources can be just as good or just as bad. And I even urge bookstores not to look at that as a barometer of quality, because if you look at this book, it meets the same production standards as this book. Both books are have the same type of professional cover by a professional artist. They have the same interiors. They have the same um, back matter. They have the same front matter. They have the same barcodes on the back and the same synopsis, same type of synopsis on the back. So there is no real difference between the two. But because some people would just see that this is produced by me or any other author, a self-published book produced by an author, they think that it has less value. There is no difference between a self-published book and a book produced by a trade house, except that of the perceptions of the individual. And those perceptions are based on the idea that a consumer product produced by a corporation has more value than a product produced by an individual. And there is no real difference between the two products. And if an author works hard and perseveres, you're going to get the same high quality type of book that you would get from a trade house. And I make every effort to make my books on the highest level so that they are the equal of a book on a trade house. And I have been told by many people that SJS Direct books are on the same level as a book produced by a trade house. So if you just give these books a chance by self-published authors like myself, you will see that both books are the same, and that what leads to the production of these books are the same thing. Someone had a positive opinion of a story, someone believed in a story, and someone made an effort to put money behind that story. That's all that publishing is. Someone believed in a story enough to put money behind printing copies of this book and trying to sell them to readers. That is all publishing is. It is not, some end all to be all or some perfect perception of it. Again, 90% of all books fail to make back their advance in business. So all you have to do is just put your money out there and take that risk and go out and publish a book. These days, it doesn't cost that much to publish a book. In many cases, if you use something like CreateSpace, it costs nothing. Or if you use something like Kindle or Smashwords, it costs you nothing to publish a book. So the only thing that prevents a book from reaching an audience really is the author themselves these days. All you have to do is go out and take that risk, believe in yourself, and put your book on the marketplace and let the readers decide. That's what I decided to do way back in 2002 when I published the first ISIS book. Is I decided, you know what, I'm tired of submitting queries to people and trying to see what their opinion is. I'm going to go out and publish my own stuff because I believe in my stories. I believe that this is a solid story. I believe readers will enjoy this story. And I believe if I give it a chance, the readers will give it a chance. And all these years later, people continue to buy ISIS, and they have bought all of my other books in my catalog, such as The Temptation of John Haynes, The Thetas, All About Marilyn, All About Nikki, and the books in the ISIS series, such as ISIS, Night of the Vampires. They have continued to buy these books, and all of these perceptions about, what I find is all these perceptions about covers and art, all that stuff falls apart when they start opening up the book and reading the pages of the story. Because when they see that the story is good, all those ideas that they have about self-published books, fall by the wayside. All these ideas that the covers on self-published books are garbage, or the content is not as written as well. All that falls by the wayside when they start reading the story and they start falling in, reading the narrative, and they start getting into the characters and getting into the story. And this is what happens when you have a quality product. And the only thing that keeps a quality product out of the books, off the marketplace, is you. Don't worry about the bookstores. Don't worry about distribution. We have online right now, and you can print up books and do things like trade shows or book fairs or swap meets and stuff like that. And you can go out and expand, build your own audience, and instead of waiting for somebody else to do it, you can go out and do it for yourself. Because one of the big problems with publishing these days is, back in the day, was people had to wait for somebody else to give them an opinion of their work. These days, you don't have to wait for somebody to give you an opinion of their work. You can go directly to the reader and go get their opinion of their work. And even then, if they don't like it, they don't like it. But still, it's on the marketplace, and you're giving yourself a chance. You're going out here and you're letting the reader, make that assessment of your work. And you're not waiting for some middleman, like an editor or a literary agent, to give you an assessment of your work. Because the whole thing is that you believed in this story enough that you took time out of every day out of your life to go out and write this. So if you took the time to go out and write it, then you should go and take that extra mile and go out and publish it. Again, these tools are right here for you to go out and publish your work. There's CreateSpace on Amazon. There's Lulu. There's Smashwords if you want to do ebooks. There's Kindle. There's Barnes & Noble. They have a print service now. And all these books are, again, they're printed in the same factories. If you go and you look at the back of the book on the last page, you will see something like this here. Can't see. Let me see if I can get it on camera. Right there. That'll tell you where the book has been printed. It says here that this book was printed in Middletown, Delaware, in 2015. And all these books are all made the same way in the same factory. And the only difference that you see in them is your self-perception, because all books are printed in the same factory, is based on the ISBN, is based on a PDF, and that's all a book is in most of these computer systems. There's no difference between a self-published book or a book printed by a trade house. And I'm urging you guys to go out and give books like Isis, Night of the Vampires, and the books in the SJS Direct catalog a try. I believe once you start reading them, you're going to enjoy them, and I believe that you will see that there is, like many of my other readers have learned, there is no difference between a self-published paperback and a paperback produced by a trade house. That's all I have to say for this video. You can get Isis Night of the Vampires in paperback, and you can also get it on Kindle Unlimited if you own an Amazon Kindle for free if you have Amazon Prime, and it's also 99 cents if you want to get it on Kindle. Again, that's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.